Hey, and we have come to the end of 2020. And I must say that I am having a little bit of a mixed feeling. On one hand, I am glad that 2020 is over. On the other hand, I'm also a little bit apprehensive about what to expect in 2021. Although for me, 2021 looks really, really promising at this point in time. And so I want to keep it that way. I have a lot of big plans that is coming for 2021. And, I am just so excited to be sharing with you. One is that the whole idea of building a group of people who are looking at leveraging live streaming for 2021, that is something that's going to happen in the new year. So make sure you keep a lookout for that. And if you want in on this group of people that it's looking at leveraging live stream for 2021, then make sure you go ahead and leave a comment with by typing in 2021, right? Just type in 2021, and when this thing rolls out live in 2021, gathering a group of people, like-minded people who is able to support each other, who is able to encourage each other, who is able to share tips and strategies with each other, and to help each other bring live streaming to the next level. If you want in on this group itself, make sure you leave a comment and type in 2021. Now, 2020, it's a, to say the least, it is a phenomenal year. At the same time, I think it's a year that has been pretty rough for many people. And myself included, I think 2020 brought took me by surprise, but 2020 also gave me a whole new experience with regards to what are some of the things that I can expect and what are some of the things that I have learned from 2020 itself. Now, as I was doing my own reflection today, and as I was looking through the events that has happened in 2020, I can't help but felt the whole emotions really, really building up inside of me, primarily because 2020 has been, let's just say, an exciting, interesting, a very, very different year, something that I've never expected before. Right. And so today I want to share with you the 5 lessons that I've learned. This is more of my own reflection itself. So for today's episode, it's more of my own reflection and my reflection in terms of how it get me on this journey on building a 1% 1 million all digital business. So the context behind that, the setting behind that, it's the following. I've been a consultant for many years, and I love the work, but I hate the hours. And the reason why I hate the hours was not just because it was long hours, but primarily because hours was the main impediment in my growth. And there is just so many hours in the day that I could sell it for. And so when I came to looking at 2020, I was all ready to execute and leverage all I have in order to not trade time for money, but to build a machine that is able to generate $1 million in terms of annual recurring revenue for me. Now, at the same time, I want to also be able to leverage the time that I have, and to do the most impactful and engaging and meaningful work, which leads to my first lesson. And the first lesson was me getting involved in a legal situation with a client. Now, this was actually, it actually started towards the end of 2019, but it got spilled over to 2020 itself. And what happened was the client decided to not acknowledge the work that I've done and instead to question the amount of work that I have provided and wanting to downplay the work that I've done. And as a result, that refuse to pay the remaining sum of monies that was due to me. And despite all the negotiations, all the discussion itself, there was no way of letting up. So I had no choice but to take the client to court. And in the process of going through court itself, I must say, in that 1.5 months, although I had a lawyer advising me, but in that 1.5 months, I just simply learned so much, not just in terms of the law that govern a contract, but more so in terms of how this whole premise of the legal framework can work for or against you. So the lesson here really is fairly simple. As a one person business, sometimes or many a times the client that we have, the relationship is huge because it's because of those relationship that we got into a project together. And sometimes people may abuse that relationship, or sometimes people, because of other demands or other priorities, decide to compromise the relationship in favor of something else. And so, one of the things that, from my point of view, is that I've always been in a giving. I've always had a giving stance. In other words, it's always about it's okay. Let's not nitpick with how much work is there and what's the scope of work. Let's just get the work done, right? Because at the end of the day, I believe in giving the client a great experience. However, this client was one of those that really took advantage of my giving stance. And as a result, that it led to many situations where it requires, a huge amount of negotiation. And quite frankly, I was not prepared for those negotiations and all those back and forth because, I think it's just a huge waste of time. But it left me with no choice but to take the legal route. And so, from a one person business point of view, one of the things that I've learned very, very clearly is the following: that number one, work with people who really value your worth. Because at the same time, when I was servicing this client, I also had another client who was paying me on time at a premium rate. In fact, two times what this other client was supposed to pay me, two or three times this other client was supposed to pay me, and paying on time, recognizing my worth, and giving me the ability to serve them in such a way that it's responsive, it's responsible, and it is also, a good mutual experience in itself. And why I know that is because recently that client actually came back to me and we are in talk in terms of how I could be supporting her team again, right? So, number one, it's really to look for clients who value your work, right? And not someone who is going to nitpick with you in terms of how many hours you put in and you say you're going to do this and you say you're going to do that and that kind of thing. That's number one. Number two is that you have to be very, very clear in terms of what is your scope of work, right? So once you're clear in terms of scope of work and you have that written down, and every conversation, every discussion, every negotiation has to be documented in the form of an email, in the form of a text message, those has to be documented. And number three is that when it comes to a situation whereby if you have to negotiate for our scope work and to be compensated, then do go ahead and do that. Because if you do not do that, if you do not recognize or acknowledge your own worth, then other people would also do the same, right? So for me, that really is a lesson that I've learned. It was a painful lesson, but nonetheless, it's a lesson that I think was a worthwhile lesson. Um, the second lesson that I've learned from 2020 is the following. So the context behind this is that, as you probably know, in 2018, I created a ton of videos on LinkedIn, and I got huge amount of traction. Now, what happened was in 2019, I began to see the fruit of my label, and I was able to get contracts. I was able to get, um, training projects, speaking engagements. I was asked to do private coaching for clients. I had corporate clients, brands that come up to me, wanting to work with me, um, work with my company to help them produce some videos. And so 2019 was great. And going into 2020, I was so excited because I was thinking like, if just in 2019, without me doing anything, just everything is just organic, I'm already making this amount. In 2020, it's going to be huge because now that I've got my track record, I've got my, um, you know, clients behind me, I'm able to push and I would be able to make a greater impact in 2020. And everything was good until, as you know, COVID 19 came into the picture. And so when COVID 19 came into the picture, a lot of things were being disrupted. Many of the things that we once take for granted are no longer possible. And many of the things that we were looking at doing will become, upended. So many of my, in fact, all of my trading were being canceled. But at the same time, that also opens up another opportunity for me to do online training and synchronous training. I was able to do a lot of Zoom training, helping people with many facets in terms of like, creating a podcast, building the live stream and all that. And it was great because I think on one hand I was ready because I've already had this skill set and I'm comfortable in front of the camera. But on the other hand, it was something that led me to start questioning many of my assumptions. Now, you need to understand that we all make our plans based on a certain set of assumptions that if this is, or at least if this is going to happen, then I'm able to achieve this, right? And if this is going to happen, then I'm able to achieve this. Now, we all have that kind of assumptions, and sometimes those assumptions need to be questioned. And what I mean by that really is that, because of how far we've been operating and what we have been doing, sometimes we kind of think that this thing will continue with the way it was. However, that was not to be the case because, as we have seen, um, really, 2020 made many of us uncomfortable to a certain extent and also made many of us rethink our strategies when it comes to, building our business itself. So my lesson here really is as a one person business, we really need to embrace this idea called intelligent opportunism. And what that means is that we need to stick with a set of strategies, we need to stick with a set of principles. That said, we also need to be clear in terms of what's happening around us and to be flexible enough and intelligent enough to recognize the opportunities that come up. So I could have just focus on the training projects that I've lost, and why over it, and start making plans and start thinking like how I could do it. And instead of doing that, what I've done is I started exploring other means, and really going into an alternative way to deliver my service, and that has definitely opened up a lot of things. So I think the whole idea with questioning assumptions, especially for a one person business, I think we have to be nimble, we have to be quick, and to have our feelers out there, know what's going on, and then to be intelligent enough to make that switch when things happen, right? Number three, it's something a little bit more personal. And as we were going through the lockdown here in Singapore, I'm just glad that within my family itself, my immediate family itself, we have a great deal of support for every single one of us, right? And the fact that we love each other's company, that was a big deal. Because as I read, many people would actually suffering in silence, either because they are victims of abuse, or whether it's verbal abuse or physical abuse. Imagine being locked down, being in the same house and not being able to get out of the house with someone who has been abusing you. I just cannot imagine that. And I'm just glad that during the period of lockdown, the relationship between myself, my wife, and my children, and the four of us, it just greatly deepened. And of course, we find out about each other's habits, and some peculiarities of each other's behavior itself, and we learn to accept that, and we learn to see that as part of the whole package. And and very much is because of their support, is because of that group of people that we have together, that make the lockdown bearable. And in fact, for me, it made the lockdown really delightful. I mean, I would look back at this moment, and hopefully we never have to go through another lockdown, but I would look back at this moment and say that I'm glad that we had that relationship back then, we had that level of support back then, because otherwise it would have been tremendously difficult for everyone, right? And so, how does that relate to a one person business? I think, having a support group is so important. Having a support group is so important that we, because we are one person business, sometimes we can become very, very lonely. We do not have someone to talk to, or to bounce ideas with, or to just have someone listen to us. And so, having a community, having a group of people who is able to understand and to help you and to support you and to, if anything, just listen to you, I think that it's something that is tremendous. And if you talk about resilient, having that support group allows you to bounce back from any kind of setback. And trust me, there will be setbacks, right? There will be setbacks. And so, with that kind of support system, you'll be able to bounce back from any setbacks a lot faster than you would otherwise, have to go through. And so here's where I'd like to extend to you, if you are interested in being in a group of people who are interested in leveraging live streaming for 2021, make sure you leave a comment and write 2021. And so that when this thing goes live, which will be fairly soon, I hope, when this thing goes live, I would, you know, inform you uh, as soon as it goes live itself. All right, so that's 2021. Now, the fourth lesson that I learned is that, in the process of going through that lockdown, as I mentioned many times, I came up with the idea of, why don't I make do with whatever I have and just start doing something, right? Because at the point in time, it was really, we were unsure like how long this lockdown is going to be, how long this pandemic is going to last, when are we going to be able to travel again, when are we able to resume the kind of activities that we have been doing, and if those activities are ever going to come back, or how are we going to make this whole thing work? And so that was when I turned to live streaming. I decided to stream every day. I remember when I spoke to, my mentor then. He was telling me that it's incredibly hard, but he was saying that it's so difficult, right? It's so difficult, but nonetheless, he told me that you just got to experiment with it. You just got to try it, right? Because even him saying that it's hard, it's just his opinion, right? But that said, I went ahead and do it. I took his advice into consideration, but I went ahead and do it, and I am just so pleased with the amount of traction that I've been building. I mean, the number of subscriber count has improved, not by a lot, but it has improved. So definitely it means that something is working. The level of traction and the number of views have been going up, and that has been tremendously, encouraging. Again, once again, it means something is working. On top of that, there are people who are reaching out to me in over DM to say that I'm enjoying your live stream. It's great insight. Once again, that is testimonial of something it's doing right. And I always believe that the only way this thing can go on, or I can come to this level itself, it's because of consistency, right? That willingness to persist, to hunker down, and to start doing something, and even knowing that you will suck, right? I mean, if you look at my first 100 live stream itself, maybe first 200 even, right? They suck, right? I make mistakes. The audio might be bad, the lighting might be bad, and all that stuff, right? And so it will be bad, it will suck, it will be awful, and it sometimes will be embarrassing. But trust me, if you're doing something and you're not embarrassed by it, it means that you are not pushing yourself enough. Because until and unless you push yourself enough, that's when you know that you are going to grow, and growth is the only way we can see progress, right? And so consistency, it's the thing that I have definitely learned, and if not reminded me that consistency is something that I need to persist with. And like for you, as a one person business, consistency is key. Now, it doesn't have to be live stream, but if you have something that you are doing, do that on a consistent basis, right? Do it on and when I say consistent, for me, my standard is every day. Well, it doesn't have to be every day for you. It can be twice a week, it can be 3 times a week, whatever your bandwidth allows you. That would be the level of frequency and consistency that you want to adhere to, right? So that really is something that I, I cannot overemphasize, because it is so crucial that if once you have that level of consistency, you would almost always outbeat your competitors, because consistency is something that is so difficult, so difficult to keep up with, right? And so that's the fourth lesson. And the fifth lesson, if you have not guessed it to be, the fifth lesson that I learned from 2020 really is about live streaming. And I just cannot imagine that this could be a possibility, you know, um, years back. Thank you, Ali, for dropping by and hitting the like button. Thank you so much, Ali. And Happy New Year to you in advance. Hope you and your family have a blessed 2021, Ali. All right, and thank you all the time, every time, for being consistent, showing up, encouraging me, giving me your support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, so you know, live stream, right? I think it's the best way to be able to connect with your audience, to show that level of authenticity, at the same time to also demonstrate your capability. Because live stream, like my mentor say, is incredibly hard, right? It's incredibly hard. It's something that it's difficult, and to do it on a consistent basis is even more so difficult, because knowing what to say, how to say it, and being able to do it on a consistent basis, it is so tough. But if you are willing to go through that first hurdle, right, you would see that amount of benefits that's going to accrue to you coming in much later on, right? By the way, the kids are just going crazy because it's New Year's Eve, so we decided to give them a little, fun time watching TV and all that stuff. Well, good old daddy is right here doing my work. So, live stream really, really something that allows you to demonstrate your authenticity, demonstrate your capability, and also, I think most importantly, is to be able to connect with your audience at the level that it's almost intimate, right? Because it is here that like for example, I see Ali coming in and watching the video, giving me a thumbs up. I'm able to acknowledge him right there and then. So it was not just like um, you see someone's post, you get it, and you hit the like button, and that's it. But here, you can actually have someone who acknowledges that you have supported them, and that is something that it's so precious, because I think COVID-19 has shown us that this is the way forward, and if you are able to master this channel itself, I think it's going to make a tremendous breakthrough for you in 2021. All right. So the thing I'm planning is I'm going to build a community of people who wants to take live streaming to the next level, and or want to find out more about live streaming and how they could leverage live stream for 2021 for their business. Then that is definitely a community that you want to be part of. I'm going to be sharing everything I know when it comes down to the best practices, the way to apply for LinkedIn Live, the way to get go live on various channels, and all that good stuff. That's all I am going to be doing. And so, if you want to be part of that community, it costs you nothing at this point in time. It costs you nothing, um, but all you will get is just value from me in terms of how you could leverage live streaming. So if that is something that you're interested in, make sure you leave a comment and type 2021, right? So 2021, just type that in, and once the platform goes live, I will keep you informed, right? So whew, once again, thank you so much for being part of my journey. I really appreciate that. And, I'm going to take the rest of the evening off. I suggest that, you take some time to do your reflection and look at these 5 lessons that I've learned and how it can be applied to you for 2021, right? And also, please share with me what are your reflections, what are your lessons, or your top lesson from 2020 itself, right? So, share it with me, share it in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And whether you're watching this live on the replay, I wish you a blessed 2021. May God bless you and definitely be in your favor. With that, I thank you. And this is Melvin Tan signing out for 2020. Bye bye.